When I first saw him, I knew he was cursed. The prince's eyes looked strange, like they belonged to something else. Not a man. I was just a boy then, not more than 10 years old. My mother worked in the palace, cooking and cleaning for the royal family. She took me with her sometimes, and I would play near the big mango tree behind the palace walls. I never thought the prince would notice me. But that day, he did. The prince was tall, with a sharp face and cold eyes. He was always quiet, watching people without saying much. Everyone said he was born with a dark spirit inside him. They said he got his power from strange rituals in the night. Even his own father, the king, seemed to be scared of him. But I didn't believe the stories then. I thought they were just tales to keep kids like me in line. One afternoon, while I played by the tree, the prince came closer. His eyes, dark as the night sky, seemed to pierce right through me. He didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small carved wooden figure. It looked like a man, but twisted, its limbs bent in unnatural ways. "Take it," he said, his voice calm but deep. "It will keep you safe." I didn't want to touch it. There was something wrong with that figure, I could feel it in my bones. But the prince didn't look like the kind of man you could say no to. So, I took the little figure and slipped it into my pocket. That night, I had a dream. I was back at the palace, only it was dark, and no one was around. I wandered the halls, but the rooms seemed to stretch on forever, twisting in ways that didn't make sense. Then I saw the prince. He was crouched over, whispering to the carved figure in his hands. I heard a voice, his, but also not his, saying things I didn't understand, like a language from another time. When he looked up, his eyes glowed red. I woke up sweating and threw the figure away. I didn't want anything to do with it. But the next day, my mother told me about the old palace servant who had died in his sleep. He had been fine the day before, and then he was just gone. I remembered seeing him around the prince many times. The stories said the prince took people's souls, using them for his power. I didn't believe it, not really. Until it happened again. And then again. Each time, it was someone who had been close to the prince. The other workers spoke in whispers, saying he was taking lives to make himself stronger, to live forever. They called him the Silent Death. I asked my mother if we could stop going to the palace, but she just hushed me and said, "The prince hears everything." One evening, just as the sun was setting, I saw him again by the mango tree. He looked at me and smiled, a thin, empty smile. "Do you still have the figure?" he asked. I lied and said I did. His eyes narrowed, and he nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "You should keep it close." That night, I saw the prince in my dreams again. This time, he was standing over me, his eyes burning like hot coals. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. He leaned in close, and I could feel his breath, cold as the air before dawn. "Give it back," he whispered. "Give me what is mine." I woke up choking, unable to breathe for a moment. I could still hear his voice echoing in my ears. The next day, my mother fell ill, and nothing could help her. She wasted away, as if something was draining her from the inside. I knew what I had to do. I went back to the spot where I had thrown the figure and dug it out from under the dirt. I took it to the palace and left it at the prince's door. As I walked away, I thought I heard a low chuckle coming from behind the door. My mother got better soon after that. We never went back to the palace, and the prince left me alone. But sometimes, I still see him in my dreams. Standing there, with those dark, empty eyes. And I wonder if he ever really let me go.